As public employees and contractors working for public agencies, we perform many jobs that generally go unnoticed, but are a great benefit to the public by virtue of a safe and reliable water supply, well-maintained roadways, and other portions of the public infrastructure. Most of us who work in field operations, whether in public works or construction, know just how dangerous our occupation can be. But with all the work performed, there are risks. Sometimes we make the headlines when one of our own is killed while working on the streets or highways. Each and every year, about 7,000 workers are injured and about 80 are killed on the roads. A report from NIOSH, the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, revealed that more than 800 workers were killed doing their profession over a 5-year period of time. Let's take some time to discuss a number of areas of concern where extra caution to prevent accidents and injuries are important. Supervisors have a key role as it relates to working safely in the field. If safety is a low priority to a supervisor, guess what? This makes safety a low priority for their employees. As supervisors, we must walk the walk when it comes to safety. It's critical to ensure that everyone is clear as to their safety responsibilities and that shortcuts are never tolerated. Let's face it, lives may be at risk, and no one wants to pay a visit to a spouse as a bearer of bad news. As field employees, we are the ones who are really at risk should something go wrong. We must take safety seriously and never miss chances to ensure that all steps are taken to ensure a safe worksite. In the field, our safety attitudes are where the rubber hits the road. The fact is, when it is all said and done, we have the ultimate responsibility for our own safety. We make choices that may dictate whether we get to go home at night. The key to a safe and efficient job always starts with training. Regulatory agencies like OSHA place great value and emphasis on training. Far too many field employees receive little or no training as for some reason knowledge seems to just come with the job, or so it may seem. This could be a fatal mistake, but the fact remains that you must be trained for every task and piece of equipment used for your job. Failure to do so leads to accidents and potential citations. We're sure you'll agree that training makes you not only safer, but more valuable. Whether it's the use of ladders or dump trucks, everyone needs training. One very important step used to help identify practices and conditions that might create an unsafe condition is the use of a job safety analysis, or JSA. On the surface, it may seem that it's a lot of bother. However, nothing could be further from the truth. In order to truly identify risks and plan and train for them, it's imperative that each task or equipment be evaluated to identify the steps necessary to safely perform the job. Without a JSA, how would one ever determine the risks and create a process to avoid hazards? Conducting JSAs just makes good sense. One of the best ways to help prevent accidents and injuries is to spend time prior to starting any job by discussing how the job will be approached, who will be doing what tasks, and how the job can be performed safely. You know what we're talking about. Football players do it before each play. They huddle up and discuss strategy. The same applies to field employees. This step is critical to ensure that everyone is on the same page and are very clear as to their responsibilities. It only takes a few minutes, but the rewards are significant. The end result, no injuries, and that's always good news. Topics should include, at a minimum, traffic issues and how will they be addressed? Who will be handling flagging? Any unusual conditions in that part of town? What personal protective equipment is needed? Who will be the equipment spotters? Trenching and confined space concerns. Who will be cutting pavement and operating equipment? The location of any utilities or other things that could impact the job. If trenching, who is the competent person and how will they do their job? The list can go on. You know what we're talking about. As the old saying goes, feedback is the breakfast of champions. Discuss and share all information relating to the job and safety. Far too many field workers are killed every year by drivers careening through traffic control zones. Most states have public service announcements reminding drivers to slow down where work occurs in the road. However, all the cones and signs in the world cannot ensure your safety against a vehicle crashing through your traffic control. Did you know that 60% of the deaths in the street happen to workers within the traffic control work zone? and of that number, about 75% were on foot. The key to working safely in the roadway is to ensure you follow the traffic control standards for your state and use any and all signs, equipment, or vehicles to create a physical barrier between employees and motorists. Extra effort is needed for planning and working on night jobs. Be sure you follow the requirements and provide adequate reflective garments and lighting for workers and flaggers. Also, be sure to remind everyone on the job to have their heads on a swivel, alert, and constantly scanning for risks and dangers. Flagging can be dangerous. As many as 20 flaggers are killed every year. It's a job that's highly important and carries a great amount of responsibility. Whatever you do, never assign the new person, someone unaware of the importance of the job, or someone who is not fully trained in the skills of flagging traffic. Some tips for flaggers include: keep on your toes. Stand alone on the shoulder in clear view and stay alert and focused. Do not stand in a group and never listen to music, use earphones, or read while flagging. Your full attention is required at all times. Avoid standing where your back is to traffic. Never stand where you might get crushed, such as near equipment, trees, and other objects. Avoid standing in shady areas, on a crest of a hill, or sharp curve due to a lack of visibility, and be sure to pre-plan an escape route for emergencies. Never leave your post until relieved. Stay in communication with other traffic control personnel using hand signals, voice, or radio communications, and make sure your hand signals don't conflict with traffic signals. Treat motorists with respect and courtesy, and never pick fights or respond to angry drivers. Above all, be sure your flagger is trained and qualified. Yes, it's that important. It goes without saying, no job should be started without everyone using all the personal protective equipment necessary to safely work. You're likely to need eye protection that's appropriate for the task being performed. Remember, no one piece of eye protection meets all situations. Choose the best protection required for the task you'll be performing. Hearing protection. Be sure you choose the proper protection for the noise exposure levels. Be sure to choose the highest attenuation value to help provide the best reduction in noise. Head protection, in the form of an ANSI-approved hard hat. Believe it or not, hard hats really do have a life expectancy. The sun and day-to-day wear can damage the hard hat. By the way, hard hats must be worn properly. Hard hats worn backwards or in some other way altered are just plain unsafe. OSHA can and will cite cases where PPE has been altered. Hand protection. Protect your hands from injury by wearing gloves that are appropriate for the task. If using chemicals, refer to the MSDS and choose a glove that will protect you from the chemical properties of the product being used. However, never wear gloves if there is a risk of them getting caught in rotating equipment that might pull your hand into the machine. Respiratory protection may be required to protect you from chemical exposure from the products being used. Be sure you have been trained, medically evaluated, and fit tested to wear a respirator. High visibility clothing. Know the classification and use of vests and other clothing used for road work. For example, Class 1, 2, and 3. Class 3 garments provide the highest level of visibility for faster speed zones and are most often used in construction. Explosions, fires, and fatalities relating to inaccurate locations of underground utilities have been making the news lately. This situation becomes even more dangerous when you consider all the different underground hazards, such as electrical, natural gas, fuel and oil, water, sewer and recycled water lines, cable TV, and other media. Don't forget the standard color codes for underground utilities. Yellow indicates a gas line. Red is for electric utilities. Blue stands for potable water. Purple represents reclaimed water. Orange is for telecommunications, and green is for sewer. Employees performing underground utility locations must be properly trained and authorized to do so. Due to some horrific accidents involving improperly located utilities, some states have new rules involving underground locations. Be sure you're familiar with the regulations and avoid digging unless all utilities have been both located and the exact place determined. Have a plan in the event of contact or damaging a utility. Call 911 and clear the area for emergency responders. Sprain and strain injuries are the most common injury type in our line of work. More than 40% of lost workdays for our industry are attributed to strains and sprains. National accident statistics reveal that these injuries most often are hand and wrist problems, sprains, strains, and overexertion. But back injuries are the most common type of injury. These injuries are often caused by working in awkward positions, such as shoveling, using hand tools, and raking asphalt, handling heavy materials such as concrete bags, pipe, and other construction materials, performing repetitive work such as constant bending to read meters or work in holes, using equipment, hand tools, pavement breakers, and jackhammers, and the use of vibrating tools like jackhammers, tamps, or pavement breakers are also the culprit behind far too many vibration-related injuries. The good news is we can prevent these injuries by minimizing manual handling of materials. Use dollies, hoists, and other equipment to take the load off your back. Take advantage of better job planning. Have materials delivered and set into place with equipment whenever possible. Store materials in locations where you will not tend to overreach or injure yourself. Use knee pads and other equipment to make life a bit easier. Above all, always get help when lifting any heavy items. Believe it or not, a great number of injuries are a direct result of digging in dirt. You know what we're talking about. Back strains, sprains, and the like. We have to realize that shoveling is akin to lifting. However, the load is at the end of the shovel. Ever wonder how the more senior field workers can outwork and outshovel a young worker? Simple. They know how to shovel. Say what? Yes, it's true. Shoveling requires a technique or skill in order to work safely and efficiently. The more experienced employees know that the key to shoveling is not overloading the shovel and avoiding overextending while digging. Remember to keep the shovel loads reasonable and use your knees and legs for additional leverage. Let's not forget about heat illness concerns. Working in hot weather can lead to a number of heat-related illnesses, with heat stroke being the most serious. Heat illnesses can be caused by a combination of exposure to hot weather conditions, high humidity, clothing that doesn't breathe well, not taking breaks in shaded areas, and failing to stay hydrated before heat illness sets in. Hard work, body heat, and not being acclimatized as weather conditions start to get hot. What is heat stroke? Heat stroke is a real medical emergency. It can and does kill. Heat stroke symptoms and treatment include hot, dry skin, absence of sweat, chills, high body temperature, mental confusion, irritability, and slurred speech. Again, this is a medical emergency. Call 911. Remove the victim to a cool, shaded area. Soak clothes with water. Fan the body and apply ice to areas such as the wrists, ankles, and neck to bring down the body temperature. First aid and CPR may be required to save a life. Protect yourself from heat illness by wearing light-colored clothing and a hat. Gradually build up to heavy work, acclimatizing yourself to the weather. Scheduling heavy work during the coolest parts of the day. Taking more breaks when working in extreme heat and humidity. Drink lots of water, at least 2 to 3 quarts a day. You should be drinking constantly to maintain your fluid intake. If you feel thirsty, it's too late. The effects of heat illness may not be far away. One of the biggest risks we face is working in trenches. The regulations for trench work are quite specific and important to safe trenching operations. Be sure that a trained, competent person is on site whenever trench work is considered. The competent person must be in charge of safety as it relates to trenching operations. In addition, before starting trenching operations, ensure that all required competent person inspections, utility locations, and soils testing have been performed before choosing the trench protection system. Of course, never enter any trench 5 feet or more in depth without review and authorization by a competent person. Remember, 1 cubic yard of soil weighs about 2,700 pounds, and an average cave-in drops 5 to 7 yards of dirt on top of workers. This amount can exceed 16,000 pounds of soil. Don't forget a ladder for every 25 feet of lateral travel in a trench, with the top a minimum of 3 feet above the top of the trench. Any guess as to the number one reason an OSHA representative will stop by your trenching project? You're right, no ladder. Since we work in public works and construction, we are, or should be, well aware of the confined space hazards we may face. You know what we're talking about. vaults and manholes, tanks and pipelines, to name a few, but there may be many more. Every year, far too many workers needlessly die in confined spaces. The primary reason is a failure to follow established confined space entry procedures and standards. Deaths usually occur from a lack of oxygen, exposure to toxic gases and explosive atmosphere, and drowning following a loss of consciousness. No one should ever die in a confined space, as the hazards are both predictable and preventable. Most hazards are either invisible or have no detectable warning property such as odor, so never enter a confined space without strictly following the safety procedures, equipment, and training provided by your organization. In addition, entry will require testing the atmosphere with a properly calibrated gas detector. Again, it cannot be stressed enough. Learn all you can about safe entry into confined spaces. If you have any questions at all, ask your supervisor. There are many ways to hurt your back on the job. One of the quickest ways is to start off the morning without warming up first. We already talked about shoveling. How about handling pipe, compactors, digging bars, and other tools and equipment? Most equipment and materials on the job are heavy, so team lifting is always in order. Size up the load, get help, and get a good grip on the object. You know this one: lift with your legs and not your back, and break larger loads into smaller, more manageable sizes. A good way to prevent back injuries while using breakers and jackhammers is to consider the installation of a pneumatic assist as used on this equipment. Since many back injuries occur while trying to pull out a gad, this device may be very useful in easily removing stuck pneumatic tools. You have a lot of equipment on the job that can be used for lifting. Use it. Backhoes, forklifts, hoists, and cranes should be used whenever possible to avoid manual lifting. It never pays to be macho when it comes to lifting and preventing back injuries. Injure your back, and the last thing you'll care about is being macho. A good way to have an accident is to allow poor housekeeping on the job site. Leaving tools, materials, and supplies around can cause not only slips and falls, but it's easy to kick a tool onto workers below. Keep track of tools, pick them up, and clean